The first thing Ethan noticed about Blackwood Station was how quiet it felt. Too quiet. Not the normal kind of silence you would expect from a small train station late at night. This silence felt heavy, unnatural, like the entire place had been forgotten by the world years ago. The station clock above the ticket booth flickered between *11:58 p.m. and *11:59 p.m. Unable to decide which time was real, Ethan adjusted the strap of his backpack and looked around nervously. "This has to be the place," he muttered to himself. He had missed his normal train after staying late at work in downtown Chicago. His phone battery sat at only 2%, and heavy rain had flooded the streets outside. Earlier, while waiting in a roadside diner, an old waitress had leaned closer and whispered something strange. "If you miss the midnight train," she had said quietly, "take the Blackwood line. It comes when nobody else is looking." At the time, Ethan had laughed it off. Now, standing alone in front of the station, he wished he had asked more questions. The place looked abandoned. Rust covered the benches. Broken lights flickered overhead. Wind pushed through shattered windows, creating a low sound that almost resembled distant crying. There were no workers, no passengers, no signs of life. Then suddenly, a metallic screech echoed through the darkness. Ethan froze. Far down the tracks, a single yellow light slowly appeared through the thick fog. A train, but something about it felt wrong. It moved silently. No horn, no engine sound, no shaking tracks, just silence. As it got closer, Ethan noticed the train looked incredibly old. Its steel body was scratched and rusted, the paint nearly gone. Across the front, hidden beneath years of dirt and damage, were faded numbers. Line 13. The doors slowly slid open. Nobody stepped out. Nobody stepped in. Inside, the lights flickered weakly. A robotic voice echoed through the empty station. "Final departure." Ethan hesitated. Every instinct in his body told him not to board. But rain poured harder. His phone died completely, and home was still miles away. "It's just a train," he whispered to himself. He stepped inside. The doors slammed shut immediately behind him. The train began moving. The moment it started, Ethan noticed something strange. The cabin was freezing. Not normal cold. The kind of freezing that crawled beneath your skin. He rubbed his hands together and looked around. The train car appeared empty. Rows of seats stretched endlessly under flickering lights. He sat near the window and tried calming himself. Maybe it was just an old overnight route. Maybe he was exhausted. Maybe his imagination was getting to him. Then, a voice spoke. "You shouldn't have boarded." Ethan nearly jumped out of his seat. Across from him sat an old man wearing a gray suit and black hat. Ethan could have sworn nobody had been sitting there seconds ago. The man looked pale. His eyes seemed cloudy, almost white. "What?" Ethan asked nervously. The old man stared at him. "You missed your train," he said calmly. "This one takes something else." A chill moved through Ethan's chest. "What stop does this go to?" Ethan asked. The old man smiled, but something about the smile felt wrong. Too wide, too forced. "No one knows." Before Ethan could respond, the lights suddenly shut off. Darkness swallowed everything. 3 seconds passed. Then the lights flickered back on. The old man was gone. Completely gone. Ethan stood immediately. What the hell? The seat across from him sat empty, like nobody had ever been there. His heartbeat quickened. He looked around the train. At first, it still looked empty. Then he noticed them. Passengers. Dozens of them, sitting silently in every row, motionless. Ethan's stomach dropped. They had not been there before. Every passenger wore old-fashioned clothes from different decades. Some wore coats from the 1940s. Others looked like factory workers from another era. None of them moved. None blinked. None spoke. They simply stared forward in silence. The train suddenly entered a tunnel. Darkness covered the windows. A crackling voice echoed through the speaker overhead. Next stop, Hollow Point. Ethan looked outside. Nothing. No lights. No city. No buildings. Just darkness stretching forever. Then suddenly, someone stood beside him. A little girl. No older than 8, she wore an old red dress and held a broken teddy bear. "You need to hide," she whispered. Ethan nearly stumbled backward. "What?" Her face looked terrified. "He checks tickets." Before Ethan could ask what she meant, heavy footsteps echoed from the next cabin. Slow, heavy. "Todd! Todd! Todd!" The girl looked toward the sound. "You don't have one," she whispered fearfully. Then she disappeared, vanished. Right in front of him, Ethan stumbled backward. "No!" The footsteps grew louder. Passengers slowly lowered their heads, like they were afraid. Then something entered the cabin. At first, Ethan thought it was a conductor. But no human looked like that. The figure stood unnaturally tall, thin, too thin. Its black uniform looked burned and torn. Its face remained hidden in darkness. Only one thing stood out, its smile. A grin far too large to belong to any human. In one skeletal hand, it carried an old, rusted ticket puncher. "Tickets!" Its voice sounded broken, like multiple people speaking at once. Ethan's breathing became uneven. I don't have one," he whispered. The conductor tilted its head slowly. The smile widened. "No ticket?" Suddenly, every passenger turned toward Ethan. At the exact same time, their eyes locked onto him. The cabin lights flickered violently. Fear exploded through Ethan's chest. Then suddenly, the old man reappeared beside him. "Run." The lights burst into darkness. Screams echoed through the train. Ethan ran. He sprinted into the next cabin. Then another. Then another. But something impossible happened. The train never ended. Cabin after cabin stretched endlessly, each one worse than the last. One car held passengers with burned skin. Another had people whispering to themselves while staring at walls. In one cabin, hospital beds replaced seats. Another smelled like rust and smoke behind him. The footsteps followed. "Tut, tut, 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 tickets!" The voice echoed louder. Closer, Ethan kept running. His lungs burned, his legs weakened. Then he saw a door marked, *Emergency Exit. He pushed it open. Wind slammed into him. Outside. Nothing, no tracks, no city, no earth. Only endless darkness beneath the train. The train floated through some impossible black void, like it had left reality behind. A voice echoed behind him. "No one leaves." Ethan turned. The conductor stood at the opposite end of the cabin. Its arms stretched unnaturally long, its grin wider than ever. Passengers slowly stood from their seats, watching him waiting. Then, the little girl appeared again. She pointed upward. "The roof," she whispered. Without thinking, Ethan climbed the emergency ladder. Rain slammed into his face. The storm above looked impossible. Black clouds twisted violently. Red lightning flashed across the sky. The train moved faster than anything he had ever seen. Yet there were still no tracks. Only darkness. He crawled desperately across the roof. Wind nearly threw him off, behind him. The conductor climbed after him. Its limbs moved in impossible directions. "You boarded," it hissed. "Now you belong here." Ahead, Ethan spotted the engine cabin. He crawled faster. Lightning cracked overhead. The roof shook violently. The conductor lunged. Its hand nearly grabbed his leg. At the last second, Ethan slammed through the engine room door. Inside. No driver, no controls. Only one rusted lever. Above it, scratched into metal, were two words: "Final stop." The conductor slammed against the door. Passengers gathered outside the glass, watching silently, waiting. Ethan grabbed the lever. "Please!" The door bent inward. Metal screamed. The conductor's hand reached through, long fingers stretching toward him. Ethan pulled the lever. Everything stopped. Silence, pure silence. Then, white light swallowed everything. Ethan woke up lying on abandoned train tracks. Morning sunlight burned his eyes. Police stood around him. "You okay?" an officer asked. Ethan sat up weakly. "What happened?" The officer looked confused. "You were found unconscious near the old Blackwood Railway." Ethan's stomach dropped. "Blackwood Station?" The officer froze. "How do you know that name?" Ethan stared at him. "What do you mean?" The officer hesitated. "That station burned down in 1987. Ethan felt cold. "There was a train accident," the officer continued quietly. "A midnight train crashed." He paused. "No survivors." The officer handed Ethan something found in his pocket. A rusted train ticket, stamped in faded letters. Line 13. Retyped trip. "Midnight!" At the bottom, scratched so lightly it was almost invisible, were 6 words Ethan wished he had never read. "We'll see you again soon."